David and Emily are a young couple who have just got married. They have just bought an apartment in a newly built luxury apartment building located in the city center. The apartment is modern with luxurious interior, spacious, and especially on the 13th floor, which some people would avoid. But for them, that doesn't matter because neither of them believes in spirituality. On the day of moving in, everything seemed to go smoothly. Boxes of furniture were stacked in the apartment, light from the windows shone in, brightening the new space. David turned on the music and made coffee, while Emily arranged the small decorations. They laughed and talked, excited about the promise of their new life. But on the first night, Emily had a strange dream. In the dream, she saw herself standing in the middle of the living room, but everything was dark. She heard footsteps echoing in the hallway, but when she turned around, there was no one. She had the feeling of being watched. The dream was so real that she woke up in the middle of the night with a cold sweat on her forehead. When she looked over, David was still fast asleep. Emily didn't tell David about the dream, thinking it was just fatigue from moving. Strange phenomena began. One evening after dinner, the two were watching TV when the signal suddenly became distorted. The screen flashed black and white, emitting an annoying buzzing sound. David got up to check, but found nothing wrong. When he returned to his seat, the screen returned to normal. They didn't think much of it. But in the following days, strange phenomena began to become more obvious. The lights in the house flickered on and off for no reason, even though the building's electrical system was brand new. The doors in the apartment opened and closed by themselves without anyone touching them. Sometimes, Emily felt a cold breeze blowing through, even though she hadn't opened the windows. There were nights when she heard footsteps rustling in the hallway, but when she went out to check, the hallway was completely silent. Once, while folding clothes in the bedroom, Emily saw a shadow pass by the door, just for a split second. She shivered, her heart pounding, but told herself she was imagining things. David became worried when one morning he discovered a long scratch on the living room wall. The scratch was deep, extending from the ceiling to the base of the wall, as if something very hard had scratched it. He asked Emily, but she had no idea where it came from. They thought it might be a construction defect, and let it go for now. The undeniable strangeness. Another night, David woke up to a strange noise coming from the living room. It sounded like someone was trying to open a drawer. He tiptoed out and saw a creepy scene. The drawers in the living room opened and closed on their own in a regular pattern. He called Emily's name, but she was still asleep in the room. David couldn't believe his eyes. Just as he was about to turn away to call security, all the drawers slammed shut with a loud bang. The apartment fell into an eerie silence. The next day, David decided to contact the building manager to see if anyone had ever experienced this situation. The manager, a stern middle-aged man, looked at David thoughtfully and said quietly, "Do you know, no one has ever lived in this apartment for more than 3 months before." David was surprised and asked why, but the manager only vaguely mentioned inexplicable problems and advised them to consider moving if they felt uncomfortable. Emily began to feel a presence in the apartment more clearly. She often felt like someone was standing behind her, but when she turned around, there was nothing. When she stood in front of the bathroom mirror, she found that her shadow did not quite match the movement of her body. There were nights when she woke up in the middle of a nightmare, but when she opened her eyes, she saw a blurry figure standing at the end of the bed, staring at her. The feeling of insecurity became more and more intense. The two began to argue more and more, unable to explain why they were so irritable and upset. It seemed that this apartment was draining their energy. David and Emily decided to find out about the building's past. They discovered that this place used to be an old house that was demolished to build a new apartment building. In the past, there had been many mysterious murders that had no solution. In particular, their apartment was located right on the location where a family was brutally murdered. The story of that family has been forgotten over time, but it seems that the souls of those who died unjustly have not found rest. After learning the truth, Emily began to see flashing images in her mind every time she entered the apartment. She saw the image of a woman with a bloody face, screaming hopelessly. The images became clearer and more continuous, making her unable to distinguish between reality and hallucination. One night, when David was away on a business trip, Emily was alone in the apartment. She heard strange noises from the living room. She walked out, and the scene before her eyes almost made her faint. In the middle of the room, a woman with a disfigured face, torn clothes, stood silently looking straight at her. That woman was the spirit of the mother in the murdered family. Emily could not move. Her body was frozen. The spirit began to move closer, and when it was only a few steps away from her, it opened its mouth, its voice soft but full of resentment.
You must go. Go away before it's too late.
Emily screamed and ran out of the apartment, tears streaming down her face. She never returned. David and Emily eventually decided to sell the apartment, despite the huge financial loss. They never told anyone about what happened inside the apartment. Another couple quickly bought it for a bargain price, and the cycle of horror continued. No one can escape the bloody past and the unjust souls that lurk within the walls.